Now, switching gears, let's go to the other side of the ball for the defensive player of the year candidates. I definitely know there's a couple that popped in my mind because you would always see their double-digit tackles or spectacular plays week to week. A lot of them in the same division too. So, who do you think right now are the top, 4 guys that we should consider?
I say 4. I think there's a drop off after the 4th one. Wow, love to be in that all division meeting with the coaches, and they're all eyeballing each other. And I got a guy. You all do, but I don't think they can try it. But how about let's start with Dante Vineri? He had a huge year last year. He's a senior this year. He had 5 interceptions for touchdowns last year. I mean, he was a Mike linebacker with those numbers. He didn't have those numbers this year, but he had a lot of tackles. He had 170.
Plays for Donovan Catholic. Just to make that.
I'm sorry. He plays for he plays for Donovan Catholic. He had 174 tackles this year, which Max Preps had him as a leader in the state. But everybody doesn't put their stats in Max Preps, so I don't know if there's anybody got higher than him. But he's a great lateral movement linebacker that can go sideline to sideline. He's physical. He backs it up. His play had a great season last year and didn't have the eye-popping highlight videos he had last year with this year, but he's still a great football player.
And a team that had one of the Shore Conference's top defenses.
Yes. Yeah, they did. Now, the only thing I'm going to say is they finished 3rd in the division and not taking anything away from them. You have Davin Bruton, a junior, Mike linebacker, looks like, a Ray Lewis type of guy. He's always chirping. The Holy Spirit game, he's going by us going, they don't want to run the football. They don't want to, and I'm looking at him going, I wouldn't want to run it on you either. But he had a quiet season a little bit just because teams, could not run the football or move the ball. And they're playing their backups too, Red Bank Catholic.
But I also think some teams schemed away from him. They ran the ball away. They tried to get a lineman to the second level and get a body on him, try to double him. To me, where he stood out was pass rush. When they sent him on the blitz or whatever, he would just overpower running backs who were there to block, just trample them, and then go right to the quarterback, or use his speed to get to guys. I felt like dropping in coverage. He did some decent things, but to me, he's more the aggressive, attacking style linebacker.
He's got a couple 1A offers, and he'll probably have a couple more in the spring. But he is their heart and soul of the defense at Red Bank Catholic.
You could argue that is the best defense in the Shore Conference is Red Bank Catholic. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there's others that would want to get their arguments in, but that's the backbone of that team, and I think that he's the heartbeat of that.
But the stats that were coming out of this guy, Colin Gallagher, the junior.
Yeah, this is the one that I'm talking about. Every week you're like, oh my goodness.
He had hits behind the line of scrimmage. He had pressures. He had sacks, forced fumbles. I mean, Coach Antonucci sends him like he's going. So he's creating some plays. He's a dude plays both sides of the football. I'm real interested to see him in the Thanksgiving Day game to finish it up. But Colin Gallagher is a wrecking ball in the backfields of other opponents. Had a great season, and he's a stat compiler. He had stats majors every game. He was so consistent, and we were like, we can't give him defensive player of the week again. We can't, but you also couldn't hold it back either. Had a great season.
Yeah, and I think when you measure, because at this point too, a lot of times everyone has good stats by this point, right? Yeah. I mean, unless like you said, their team played a lot of blowout games and they weren't, or the rest of their defense was really, really good, so they're not going to get a million tackles. But the thing I appreciate about Gallagher is he did it against the good teams. I was even at the game where RBC beat them 35-0, right? So you think, it's a lopsided game. He had like 2 sacks in that game, and he was flying through the gap and making plays. So even though they struggled overall, even against the upper echelon, he was still producing game after game. And that to me is always a big sign of somebody who's a real contender for this, and that they're not just doing it in these games that they're winning by 40 points. They're doing it against kids that are FBS level linemen and, like dropping quarterbacks who are some of the best players in the Shore. So I think to me, that's a really impressive thing for that.
And then the last one at Toms River North, Ty Kazanowski. Again, so much talent on that field, and you got to zoom and pick one person. I think Ty was the quarterback of the defense. Very physical football player. You could see. You got to watch the games live. If you go to watch it on TV, you don't see it like on Huddle. But if you go to the game, like he's the guy that's barking at the players. Get your helmet back on, do this, that. Like he's like a coach on the football field, and then he plays like a crazed dog on there. He goes all out. It's really impressive to see him play again. And Tom Drew North's defense is, their offense is getting all the PR, but their defense is the one that's looking great in the playoffs.
Yeah, and I think that, like you said, the hardest thing with that team is narrowing it down. Who's the guy? I mean, they got so many talented players. And even Michael Ford on the other side of interceptions, Tariq Council with interceptions, Pruitt, their D linemen, their D tackles, Jalen Matthews and a couple other guys. Those guys are good, all of them. So, yeah, it's tough. But you're right. Kazanowski's the leader. He's the sideline-to-sideline guy. He sets the edge that you can't really run outside on them that much. And I feel like he comes up with the big plays, too. Like, it's 3rd and 1, and he gets the hit for, like, a -2.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of thing. It's like it's not so much – always how many tackles you have, but the quality of them. Did you make the biggest play when your team needed it the most? Did you get that sack when you had to have the ball back or you had to slow down their momentum? And I think he's one of those guys.
Yeah, and they got a lot of juniors, sophomores on a football team, and he's that mature senior that kind of puts them in their place a little bit in a respectful way. I like it.